Hi, my name is Janet Thomas. I'm a product manager at the Siemon Company, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the next episode of our corporate podcast, Network Connections, the podcast about information, communication, technology, presented by Siemon. Today on our show, I am pleased to be joined by Dave Medeiros, Network Cabling Specialist for the Siemon Company. How are you doing today, Dave?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the podcast, Janet. This is my first podcast. I'm very excited about this. I feel like a celebrity.
Well, we are happy to have you. So, Dave, it's my understanding that you've been here for 22 years now, correct?
22 years. Yeah, it's hard to
Wow.
believe. It just flew right by, but I guess that's what everybody says, right?
Absolutely, yeah. 1 minute it's 1 year, and the next minute it's 22 years. So, yeah. Can you share with us, Dave, a favorite memory of yours from when you first got started with the Siemon Company?
Yes, I think the first thing that really jumped out at me as a really good thing that was happening here was Festivus, where, as you know, we bring a lot of food in around Christmas, and we just basically eat incredible quantities of food all day long, which checked off boxes of I love a lot of food and I like big variety of food. So it was a win-win situation there. So
Yeah, it is. It's a fun day and a really fun event and very fulfilling by the end of the day. So yeah, it's a great time. Before you accepted the job at Siemon, Dave, where had you come from and what made you want to join the Siemon Company?
I came from a division of Litton that specialized in a military type industrial quarter turn bayonet style connector for transit applications, military, and it was more of a corporate environment that, it had a lot of rungs on the ladder of communication between people when you really needed to, if you needed to get answers right away. And one of the things that I really thought was great about the Siemon Company was that it was family owned and that there was a real connection between the owners and the business itself. So if they had a vested interest in making sure the customers were happy and you could get answers right away instead of having to fax corporate headquarters in California and getting an answer 4 days later. So it was a nice change of pace for that. So.
Yeah, and that's still true today. I mean, all of the current family members who are very much involved in day-to-day business, you still see them around the facility, and they're very approachable. So it's still true today.
Yes, they are.
In your role as a network cabling specialist, what segments of the business do you support?
Well, my concentration is in fiber and in ruggedized product lines, but also I have involvement in the other product lines from copper to our metals program with racks. So it varies from day to day, but I'd say my focal point and my concentration is fiber and ruggedized.
Great, yeah, that's true, Dave. I know you and a lot of your colleagues do support and pitch in, wherever help is needed. So it's really great. We appreciate it. What are the fundamental product attributes which characterize a product as ruggedized?
I think the basis of what makes a ruggedized product considered to be a ruggedized product is its ability to keep the environment out from basically the business end of the connector, which is where the interface of the outlet to the plug is happening. A ruggedized product will seal itself off from the outside environment and keep particulate matter out as far as solids, dust, dirt, and also moisture, water, or any liquids from ingressing inside of there also.
Great. Yeah, that's a lot of good information. Thanks, Dave, for that explanation. In what types of environments would you see requirements for ruggedized connectivity?
That's a really good question because I think what a lot of people, when they think ruggedized, they may have a vision in their head of an industrial application on a factory floor with lots of machinery and different things happening around it. But in actuality, if you open it up a bit and think of other things that you could look at as a ruggedized environment, it could be a hospital, it could be a laboratory in a college campus, it could be in a supermarket, food processing plants, marina, for example. There's a variety of applications that would lend itself to being beneficial to have ruggedized in that you may not realize are even applicable to it. So.
That's true, Dave. Yeah, that you gave a lot of good kind of environments where, yeah, it may not come to mind first and foremost, but yeah, there's definitely a need for keeping out weather and other elements outside of your network. So, would you be able to expand on maybe an application or two within these environments, Dave, that could really highlight the role of ruggedized and the need for ruggedized?
Sure. I think one that would be rather relevant right now is what we're seeing with a lot of the disinfecting that's happening in the healthcare industry and many of the other industries that we have also. The typical disinfectant mixture that's used is a bleach solvent of some kind, which, if exposed, can cause corrosion of those pins. So the use of a ruggedized connector in those situations would be ideal because it would be able to keep the disinfectant out, whether utilizing the IP66, 67 cap on there, or possibly the mated system being engaged. For example, if you have an operating room, there's a lot of instrumentation that's in there, heart-lung machines, a lot of equipment that is mobile, needs to plug into the wall so it can convey information to the nurse's station. When the operation is over, those are rolled out to be cleaned and you're left with the outlets on the wall. So if you're able to cap those off, you can proceed to use the disinfectant spray everywhere without any concern of possibly deteriorating your connections there. And it should be mentioned too, it wouldn't happen right away, a deteriorated pin. It would probably happen at a very unsatisfactory time, like while an operation is going out. You wouldn't want a pin to snap at that moment, even though it hadn't happened for a couple months. So the ruggedized really would help you, keeps your confidence high in the system. So.
Yeah, wow, that is a great example, Dave. Thanks for illustrating that. Yeah, thank you for that. What can you tell us, Dave, about the advantages of using ruggedized fiber products in harsh environments?
The ruggedized fiber, it has many of the same attributes as the copper as far as its, sealing out the environment, but it has a benefit of being able to go a little farther than the copper, especially if we're talking single mode. Single mode has the ability to go kilometers out, which is a much longer distance than we can get with copper. And also, it is not susceptible to electromagnetic interference of any kind. We do have, in the ruggedized world, there's shielded FUTP connections that do a good job of mitigating electromagnetic interference, but fiber has no interaction with electromagnetic interference either. So it's a good product line to do in that consideration also. But primarily the distance is really going to help you out. If you want an example of where that could come into play, a lot of universities use the blue light security poles on campus that are usually away from the main buildings in case a student needs to contact a security station, and those would be outside of the range typically of a copper solution, so that can really have some reach away from the building that single mode fiber would really help with. So
That's true. Excellent point. We do hear about IP ratings when we talk about ruggedized products. Can you explain basically how IP ratings work?
Sure. When we look at IP ratings, it usually looks at two categories. One of the categories is the ability to keep solid matter out, which would be in the form of dust or debris that it's able to keep out. Fine dust, very fine powders, which goes hand in hand with the ability to seal out liquids. So, for example, if you had an IP67 rating, that's going to give you the ability to basically seal out any solid matter, and you can seal out liquids for immersion to 1 meter for 1/2 hour time before it would get inside of the connector. So that's going to handle spray downs, rain, hydraulic spray, anything of that nature, up to being temporarily flooded to 1 meter submersion for up to a 1/2 hour. And, hopefully that would not be a daily occurrence or something like that you'd be submerging it, but it's good to know you'd have that classification to deal with everyday exposure of spray downs and such. So.
Okay, good. Thanks. Yeah, that I think that helps clarify. And I know that there's probably different charts out there that are available for folks to reference
Yes.
if need be.
Hmm.
Well, thanks for all of that insight, Dave. Before we go, I think there are some coworkers that sent in some questions for you to answer. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to ask them in a lightning round type of forum,
Oh,
answering with the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the question.
okay. I'm a little scared, but we'll give it a shot and see what happens.
Okay, here we go. What is the most unique or unexpected ruggedized application that you've seen, Dave?
Probably one of the most unique and relatively unexpected, I guess, would be we're able to utilize some of these at a commercial space company. They were using telemetry equipment around the launch site, and they wanted something to be able to roll it out, and they could bring it basically to wherever they needed to do it, and not worry about having to run over the cable, not have to worry about exposure to moisture or anything of that nature. And they liked it and utilized it, and I'm a bit of a sci-fi nut myself, so I'm into space, and that application kind of pulled on my heartstrings of something cool that I like to see our product used for. So
Awesome. And can you describe for us maybe the coolest site that you've ever visited relating to ruggedized connectivity deployment?
probably one of the neatest sites I saw was in a pharmaceuticals company in their laboratory. It was a very high-tech, futuristic location where they utilized ruggedized connectors throughout, and they had basically a white environment, very high-tech monitors, very high-tech testing equipment. It almost looked like the set of a movie, which really looked cool, and it was nice to see that application being used. So.
That's great, Dave. And lastly, I think we have time for one more question. Some listeners want to know Pepe's versus modern pizza, Dave. Which is your favorite and why?
Oh boy, see, for my whole life here in Connecticut, I was Pepe's fan, which I love Pepe's pizza. And actually 2 years ago, I went to Modern for the first time. I know that's shocking being so close to New Haven, but I think I can find a place in my heart for both of them equally. They both have a little something that's different, but it's pizza in my book. That's good.
That's a great answer. Well, that's about all the time we have today for the lightning round. Dave, thanks for being such a great sport and for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This was a pleasure.
That's all for today's episode of Network Connections presented by Siemon. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Dave, for joining me. Make sure you subscribe to the Siemon Company YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Future episodes will continue to feature Siemon experts that will deliver valuable insight into the ICT industry. From all of us here at the Siemon Company, we hope you and your family are staying safe and healthy. See you next time.